information sharing and public engagement. Chraj and you, a communications platform for information sharing and public engagement. Chraj and you, a communications platform for information sharing and public engagement. Chraj and you, hey, a communications platform for information sharing and public engagement. Chraj and you, oh yeah. Chraj and you, Chraj and you, Chraj and you, oh yeah. Chraj and you, oh you, yeah.
Good morning, our cherished viewers. It is a delight to welcome you to Chraj and You, the platform where we break down the triple mandate of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Chraj, into relatable and practical conversations that matter to you. I am Rufina Dimbwe Palvi, and it is a delight to come your way every month with thought-provoking, forward-looking, yet honest and reflective conversations about the future of human rights protections, anti-corruption, good governance, and administrative justice. This morning, viewers, prepare yourselves for a conversation that will deepen your understanding of the role and impact of Chraj. We are coming to you live from our head office at the Old Parliament House in Accra, and we're streaming live via Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the special edition of Chraj and You, featuring the Chraj Commissioner. And so we encourage you to get interactive with us by sharing this live stream and by liking this live stream. We also encourage you to send in your thoughts, questions, and comments as the conversation progresses. Our guest on the show today needs no introduction, but for the benefit of those who don't know him, the Commissioner of Chraj, Dr. Joseph Whittal, joined the Commission in 1993 when it was established as the Regional Director of the Upper East Region. He later served as the Director for Legal and Investigations, and he held this position up until 2012 when he was appointed a Deputy Commissioner. Subsequently, in 2016, he was appointed Commissioner, and since that time, he has led, directed, and guided Chraj towards achieving its vision and mission. Dr. Whittal, good morning.
Good morning.
You're welcome to Chraj and You.
Thank you for the great, kind words.
All right, sir.
Yeah.
Commissioner, you've been with the Commission since its inception in 1993. And so you've served or you've worked with the Commission for about 33 years now.
Yeah.
What would you say are some specific achievements that you can highlight with regards to your work and the impact since you've been with the Commission?
Right, thank you. But before I go to any specific achievements, because it will cover the term of my predecessors, I'd like to pay tribute to Justice Emil Short, Mrs. Anna Bosman, Angelina Domachari, and Benjamin Opong. They were the pioneering leadership of the Commission. In fact, they interviewed me and picked me into this Commission in 93. They established the Commission, and what I came to do with my colleagues, late Richard Quayson, and presently with Mercy Labi and Bafuboni, is to consolidate what they have established. Now, having put that behind me, I'd like to reflect on the things that in the past 33 years that the Commission has done, what the achievements are and what I think the impacts have been. Now, we came from a period of military rule. You remember 1992 Constitution ushered us into democratic rule. But before then, we had military rule for over 19 years. And so there was this problem of human rights violations. You're aware of the military regime and the excesses that took place in the AFRC and the PNDC. And so the major focus of the commission at the beginning was on how do we build a culture of human rights in Ghana. And I paid a tribute to Mr. Short and his team because they really did a lot of pioneering work in that area. Some of the achievements are, one, we looked at the issue of female genital mutilation, right? And that is about, it's an inhumane, discriminatory practice against women. It's not enough to speak against it. There's a need to take action against it, but we needed evidence. So we went through the field. We made sure that we had the practice well documented to justify the need to have legislation amending the Criminal Offences Act to make female genital mutilation a criminal offense. And that is major because it affects womanhood, and all of us have mothers, female children, and sisters. So for us, as a commission, that was great. Again, within the human rights field, we looked at handling what we call the trocosi system. The trocosi, most Ghanaians know what it means, particularly in the coastal areas around Volta, Oti, and others, where virgins are given up to shrines in atonement of the sins of families, and parents and grandparents. And that again went against womanhood. So we made sure that we put our focus there, worked with civil society, particularly basic needs, an NGO, and we came out with the evidence justifying the need again to have criminalization of that practice. And so servitude, no matter in whatever form, domestic servitude in any form, is criminal in Ghana because of that. But that is all in the human rights field. We took up the issue of children, marrying children off at an early age. That happens to be the practice in some of the regions and some of the religions. I don't want to mention names, but that had an unfortunate effect on children, their education, their health, and the fact that they have to bear children that they themselves are children of. And so we're able, again, before the Children's Act was passed, some of us who don't know, we had our input in justifying the need and pushing, promoting, ensuring that Parliament passed the Children's Act, not only to domesticate the UN Convention against the UN Convention on Children, but also to criminalize certain things that went against children. And early marriage of children before their school-going age is completed became a basis for protecting the rights of children. And so that was what we did during the early period. Now, when some of us came into leadership, we realized that we need to consolidate our human rights culture, which had picked up. Ghana, if you look at all the indices, our human rights culture had picked up. But not much can be said about our corruption. Not much can be said about public service delivery. So our attention was once again turned in the area of how do we get all Ghanaians galvanized to work in the area of getting corruption or anti-corruption becoming the focus of all. In the past, you will read newspapers, what is Chraj doing about corruption? What is the then serious fraud office, that is IOCO, doing about corruption? What is the Attorney General doing about corruption? We forget that institutions alone cannot fight corruption. And so to get around this problem, the Commission put together a team. That team comprised leadership in the public service. In fact, right up to the president, that time, it was President Mills's time, leading to civil society organizations, private sector, all of them, we brought them together. And we sat down and indicated, look, it's not enough to blame institutions. Can we come up with a strategy that would get all of us involved in fighting against something that is not only criminal, but it affects the human rights of our people? Because monies that are not used for the purposes for which they ought to be used, for building schools, hospitals, bridges, roads, and others, because some people have diverted the funds, certainly affects human rights. And once we sit in that fulcrum of mandates, governance mandates or teams that handle human rights and anti-corruption and public service, there was a need to bring all of them together. That is what underpinned what came to be called the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan. When we galvanized all of us together, good things came out of it. We did not know that Chraj would play any role. But at the end of those conferences, almost all Ghanaians said, look, one, the Commission is independent of the executive. It is also a body that is respected and credible. Why don't you take the leadership in the development of a strategy of that nature that would transcend political party regimes? And you are always there. So we took up the mandate. We developed, we brought everybody together. We got financial support from our development partners and others. We made sure that the team that worked on developing the anti-corruption action plan was broad-based, from public sector, from civil society, from private sector. Even faith-based institutions were all added. And of course, the media. And the development took place. We had the opportunity of President John Dramani Mahama, who at that time happened to be, that is his first, he calls it his first incarnation, coming to launch it in this premises, the old Parliament House, and particularly in the old chamber, parliamentary chamber, which is now bent. And so that is how Ghana, working together as, in implementing a strategy that covered everybody in the fight against corruption, became launched. And we were given the responsibility of coordinating this. I'm saying this within the context of an achievement because people now hear so much about corruption, right? But people will not know. Why is corruption now suddenly almost commonplace? People are talking about it. It was an objective under the Anti-Corruption Action Plan to make corruption, all aspects of corruption, not just bribery, known. So that people know that this and that we are doing is feeding into corruption. And so don't point fingers only at institutions and also maybe just elected public officials. We are all in it. There's a demand and there's a supply. So if we want to fight corruption, this is the strategy that will work. We guided this nation through the past 10 years, coordinating everything about the implementation and reporting on corruption until December 2025. Then we saw the need, because the plan had come to an end. That is an achievement by itself. But You have worked a plan or a strategy for 10 years. How do you know whether you've done well or not? And what are the areas that you need to improve upon? That is how come we again took up the mantle, that is the other achievement, to evaluate the strategy, the 10-year strategy, to know what worked, what did not work, how can we, going forward, improve upon it. The evaluation report is a masterpiece. One, because it's the first in the world to be, that is, as a strategy, to evaluate a strategy using the UNODC standards. And so it is being replicated all over the world. In China, I know in China, the UNODC has gone to do evaluation of a strategy there. In some countries in Africa right now, evaluations are taking place of their strategy. So if you can't call this an achievement, what more? So one, the Anti-Corruption Action Plan as a strategy to bring all galvanizing all Ghanaians around one strategy is an achievement by Chraj. Two, evaluating that strategy using a standard set, the international standards, and coming out with the findings, which is informing the current National Ethics and Anti-Corruption Action Plan, is again a plus on the side of the Commission. We are still very much involved in the National Ethics Anti-Corruption Action Plan, which is presently led by the Program Office at the Office of the President. And we're hoping that when it's outdoored, Chraj will play its role again in mobilizing all the things that we need to do to implement the Chraj's aspect of that new strategy. So again, that's the anti-corruption aspect, but I have not ended yet. You're talking about achievements. Good. The human rights area, Ghana is predominantly an extractive sector economy. We extract gold, cocoa, bauxite, and all those things, and they have their human rights impacts on the communities that live in those areas. We realize that it's not enough to receive complaints, investigate them, that is one-on-one, and then put out a decision. How can we do a systemic, how can we again bring the country around a systemic plan that would take care of the issues around mining, whether it's gold, bauxite, manganese, oil, everything, and then focusing on the business impacts, the human rights impacts particularly. So we took up the guiding principles on the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, localized the effects in Ghana, and came up with what we call the baseline. The baseline study exposed the gaps in our legislation, in our policies around the area of the protection of human rights in the extractive sector, and even in banking and ICT. So long and short, we have again presented this country. We've launched what we call the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. And this plan has been launched. Hopefully, we're discussing with the Parliament. We should be able to adopt that plan for use in the country for the next 5 years. And so that again is an achievement. I'm looking at the bigger picture, not the one-on-one investigations that we conduct. Then again, in the administrative justice area, which is basically about good governance, we realize that most of our ministries, departments, and agencies are established by law. But the law only sets out the major areas of their operation. But how they are to operate is not out there. So the public need to know and to hold ministries, departments who actually do the public service delivery accountable. So we came up again in the area of administrative justice mandate with a template that will guide all public services, ministries, departments, and agencies who render services to the public to come up with what we call the client service charters. And that again, as we normally do, we are not working in isolation. We gathered, we galvanized all the MDAs, we got civil society, we got the media, we got everybody involved, including development partners. And that is how come you now have what we call the client service charters. What remains to be done is to popularize them, because that they set out what are the time frames within which a citizen or a resident can expect a service, and if not done, can take the public service on. And it also includes the establishment of what we call the service units in every ministry, department, and agency, among others, who would take care of internal complaints about service delivery. And when they are not satisfied, they can escalate it to the ombudsman, which is the commission. So again, our achievement in the administrative justice front is the client service charters. So that is what we've done up to now. And I think we have consolidated those mandates. Not only are we carrying them out in the routine fashion, in terms of the investigation of complaints, but we've taken up the larger picture of how we can get systemic improvements in how we handle human rights, how we fight corruption, how we do public service delivery. Right.
Commissioner, so based on everything that you have highlighted, at this juncture, I want to know, is there anything that you are proudest about among all of these achievements, whether it is in Ghana or outside Ghana, based on the work that Chraj has been doing over these years and all of the achievements that we have been able to achieve?
Yeah.
Is there any one of them that you are proudest about?
You see, when you're a father, you love all your children. You can't separate between them and say, this is the one I like most. But it's when you are pressed that you can say, okay, children, know that I love all of you. But there's one person that I would want to comment on, right? And so I would say, because we've handled these achievements that I've mentioned so far, there is one thing that has come up. One, we all talk about it, political finance transparency, right? We all say we have monetized elections in Ghana. It's like there's no end, because the last time CDD reports talks about, to run for president, you must have over $200 million US. That's unsustainable. Where do you get that money from? Unless you again pick from people who, when you come to power, you have to support them. So how do we resolve this? So Chraj has been listening to all the discussions, the debates, and the rest, and we decided to do something which I think I am proud of. We decided to go global first, but we first discussed with the Attorney General's office, can we support as a country a resolution on political finance transparency, which will mean that there should be disclosure of how members of parliament, candidates, political parties, not what is happening now, but very detailed global standards that we can then translate into our law. Because if you wait, we will never do it. But if you have a standard, and you sign on, the citizens of Ghana will force you to pass legislation domestically. So we got his signal. Ghana will be ready to support. Then we met the presidency. They were ready to support. And so we managed to get other countries, Norway, Mongolia, and Albania, who joined Ghana to co-sponsor a resolution at the last Conference of State Parties in Doha, just December. It's a groundbreaking resolution. It got passed, but of course, other African countries joined Ghana, and then other countries in the world joined the four. And we now have a groundbreaking resolution. I would encourage anybody who is interested in fighting corruption at the level of political transparency, let us read this resolution, hold our MPs accountable. And of course, the members of parliament were there. In fact, the Speaker of Parliament led Ghana's delegation to Doha, at which this resolution was passed. And so we think it is, in recent times, is our most proudest moment. And we now need to translate that into domestic legislation. And I understand there is already a private member's bill in Parliament. Of course, it may not reach the standards that are in this resolution, but we intend working with other like-minded institutions and persons to strengthen that bill, and if possible, turn that bill into, a bill by the president, in order that it will not have difficulties in passage. That is what I'll say is our proudest moment yet. Right.
Ghana is currently in the process of establishing the national preventive mechanism. And with this, it means that Chraj will be leading that mandate. Commissioner, what is the national preventive mechanism and what does this mean for Ghana?
Right. Thank you. Now, in the Constitution, there's a provision in Chapter 5 that talks about inhumane treatment and torture of people. It's prohibited, right? Good. So picking from there, Chraj had already started visiting places of detention, the prisons, police cells, administrative detention centers like what is in Ioku, what is in the Burma camp and all those military establishments, to see the humaneness of the treatment of persons deprived of liberty. We've done that without legislation.
Okay.
We have reported that to Parliament and to the UN. But the UN had always required, you need legislation to pass it. And so when OPCAT, the Optional Protocol Against Torture, was passed, Chraj led, at that time, an ombudsman was in power, was then the acting commissioner. Chraj led, and we got Parliament to designate this commission. Designation is a legal term. So we are designated already now as the National Preventive Mechanism. And the next step, which should have been within 1 year under the OPCAT, we should have had the National Preventive Mechanism established by law. Now, we missed the 1 year, but we had been working with the previous government, the Attorney General of the previous government, and amendments were sent to Cabinet to make an amendment of the Commissions Act, Establishment Act, to provide for the National Preventive Mechanism. But when we couldn't get that through, and things, the government left power, or got out of power, we have now introduced that legislation, that provision, into the corpus of legislation that we are working on, the Chraj Act in general. And that is supposed to then give us the fourth mandate. Now, that fourth mandate is also dear to our heart because we are already working on it, but now it gives us the legal basis for any findings and recommendations that we make.
We are very sorry for the unfortunate incident that we experienced. It was a minor challenge that has been resolved, and we're ready to continue. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the special edition of Chraj and You, featuring the Chraj Commissioner, Dr. Whittal. And our topic for today is the role and impact of Chraj. Dr. Whittal, before we had that minor challenge, you were telling us about some of the stuff that Chraj has done or implemented in respect of protection for marginalized groups and the vulnerable. Yes, sir.
Right. So that is a context within which we should also appreciate our memorandum that we sent to Parliament on LGBT. Right? That's the context. In our context, as a commission, we are commissioned to protect human rights of all persons. And they are a minority group in Ghana. And so we drew attention to the human rights issues within the bill.
Okay.
It is not as if we don't appreciate the culture of Ghanaians. We do appreciate the culture of Ghanaians. We want our Ghanaian culture to be as protected as possible. But we gave ourselves a constitution as well. And we gave ourselves human rights. And that's the context within which we should see our intervention. And so that is where we have handled LGBT issues as a vulnerable group.
Okay.
Right. Then for disability, we have been working very closely with other stakeholders on a new legislation that will replace the Disability Act, because the Disability Act of Ghana actually even predated the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. And so certain standards are not in our act. And there's a need for us to introduce that aspect.
Okay.
And so we are hoping that the bill that is before Parliament, I understand there's a committee working on it, will become law as soon as possible. So Ghana standards will now become as global and standard as they should be on areas of disability. And it's heartwarming to hear what the President has said concerning the things he's doing for the persons with disability. But we would probably at the right time be monitoring to see whether those interventions by the state for persons with disability, for instance, free, they are not to pay school fees,
Yes.
they are not to do certain things, we would want to see whether it's actually happening and to give a report to Ghana. Because you see, people don't understand. Our role is not just to investigate complaints. We are also to hold government accountable. If government promises to do something in the areas of our mandates, we monitor to ensure that it is actually happening on the ground. And that is something that we will be undertaking soon.
Okay.
Now, we are also on the basis of a complaint that has come to the Commission in the area of I don't know how best to put it, but we have schools that do not have basic amenities like washrooms, places of where the kids can take care of their privacy. When that complaint came, it has triggered a systemic investigation by this commission. We've carried out major research throughout the country to know which of the government educational institutions at the pre-tertiary level that do not have toilets. And because it will be dehumanizing if we expose our kids to that, and to require government to ensure that that's the remedy. So this is the context in which we handle our mandate. And it is not as if we are looking to trump the government. It is simply making sure that we protect the rights of everybody. And in this context, you put kids in school, you build them a beautiful school, you give them food, you do everything, but you have not provided a place for them to free themselves. That's lopsided, and that will deprive them of the dignity that they ought to have. So those are the things we are doing.
I want to take us to a conversation about anti-corruption.
Right.
When you were mentioning some of the achievements of Chraj, you highlighted the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan. And so what are some of the outcomes that have come from the implementation of this action plan?
Yeah, quite a lot. Indeed, I'll say what I can remember, but anybody who is interested can read up the evaluation report by the UN team. Right. So what's off the cuff, what many Ghanaians do not know is that the office of the special prosecutor is not just an idea of the previous regime. Because before the previous regime even got into power, the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan had already set out as what ought to be done is to have an office, an independent office of Special Prosecutor Authority. I mean, the words are there. Independent, but we expected it to have been a constitutional body.
Okay.
But the previous government bought into it and did not use the constitutional route and decided to establish it as by statute, but picked the type of conditions that would make them work independently. But some of us at the time said that was not the way to go. And so this is what has been besetting the office of the Special Prosecutor. And that is why the committee, the Constitutional Review Committee, is now recommending that we go back to what NACAP actually wanted. Okay. That is by making the office of the Special Prosecutor become a constitutional body. Okay. And it will not have these difficulties of have you borrowed from Article 88 from the Attorney General in order to become a prosecutorial authority, but if it is part of the Constitution, that would then be well established. That's one. We also hear so much about digitalization. Anybody who wants to look at the NACAP and the evaluation of that NACAP can go and see. Okay. Digitalization is not only a governmental matter. It was a NACAP outcome that all the areas which are corruption prone, where there's human contact, we should make sure that we digitize so that we prevent people from getting close to each other in order to demand and take bribe. That is what happened. And so you see Ghana Revenue Authority digitizing all the revenue handles that they are handling. You see ports, when we talk about paperless ports, it's all part of NACAP. Because all these people came together as part of what can we do to fight corruption. If you have paperless ports with ICOMs and others making sure that they can know what is in your container even before it lands. Mm-hmm. You cannot come and use agents to do your own thing and get out. No, they'll catch you. So the outcomes of NACAP are many. I've just mentioned the OSP, digitalization, GRA, revenue handles, and then others. If you take your time and go over it, we have done quite that's why nobody can say the NACAP did not do well. It did well. But of course, government is a continuum. It has come to an end. We need to go back and look, how can we do it better? And so we are continuing. Now we are looking at the ethical dimension. Not only are we stopping people from getting closer so that they will not take money, but can we imbue ethics into public servants, into the supply side, which is the private sector, so that they understand that if we want Ghana to move, if we want our children to come and benefit from the Ghana that we are having now, then we need to be ethical in everything we do. And that is why that tweak has been brought in. But of course, there are other things that is going to come out in the National Ethics and Anti-Corruption Action Plan, the new one. Right.
Also, you did mention, quite maybe explained, in terms of administrative justice, the introduction of the Client Service Charter, yes, to improve service. I want you to explain further what this means and what Ghanaians or citizens should expect in terms of dealing with public service and in connection to accessing the services of public offices.
Right. Again, that is an outcome of NACAP.
Okay.
It's very important that we appreciate that the strategy in getting all of us around the issue of fighting corruption goes beyond
bribery and goes beyond prosecuting corrupt officials, but it's broad-based. And so,
Client Service Charter is about transparency in the public service. Laws by themselves do not set out how you are going to deliver the service. The daily nitty-gritties, the law cannot set out those ones. It is
you water, I'm going to build you a school. Chiefs are begging. We don't have to beg for our own taxes. And so it's important that we get that concept right. Using this opportunity to appeal to all public institutions who have got their client service charters to make them publicly known.
Okay.
So that they can be held accountable and people, the public, the general public, can take them on when they are not performing up to standard. Because you have accepted to work for the public, the Ghanaian citizens. Nobody asked you to take up that appointment. If you take up the appointment, make sure that you are accountable to them. That is all about. That's the concept of the client service charter. And it's all about introducing efficiency. If you look at it, it's one of the objectives of the NACAP. Efficiency. If you are efficient in your work, you will deliver on your work at the right time.
Okay, sir. I want us to now shift the focus to partnerships, some strategic partnerships that we have had and how they have strengthened the work of Chraj over the years.
Right. At the very beginning, when Chraj was established, we had the opportunity of working with Danida.
Okay.
Danida actually supported the Chraj's budget for some time, and then later on went into core funding.
Okay.
Where we decided they give you a pot of money, and then you will know how to use that money to achieve your mandate. But of course, that took place for a number of years, but unfortunately, certain things did not work well. So we came to an end with Danida. But since then, credit must be given to the UN agencies. The UN agencies in particular, UNFPA, UNICEF, UNDP, and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, particularly the West Africa Regional Office. They have been very, very
awesome in terms of the support they've given to the commission and continue to give.
Yes, sir.
And we can only applaud them for that. In the anti-corruption field, no, the administrative justice field, we've had the World Bank come in. The World Bank has been very, very instrumental in energizing this commission. In fact, equipment, so many things that we have done, the World Bank has supported them in recent times. And we need to appreciate that. Then, of course, at the local level, within the domestic level, we have Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. We have Ghana Integrity Initiative, which is now Transparency International Ghana, working very closely with the Commission in the area of anti-corruption. We have the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative and a motley group called the NGO Forum, Human Rights Forum, working very closely with the Commission. And these are partnerships that we are very happy, and because they help the Commission to actualize its mandate in the area of human rights, in the area of anti-corruption. And so far, of course, administrative justice and corruption are very close. So most of the things that we do in the anti-corruption field also affect the administrative justice mandate.
And a follow-up to that question, since we're talking about strategic partnerships, we have a public education function as a commission. And so I want to know how Chraj is reaching the public, how Chraj is executing this function of educating the public on their mandates and on their rights, and also making their services known to the Ghanaian public.
Yes. Right. Chraj has also been progressively improving upon how it reaches out in the area of public education. Time was at the very beginning. It was before the internet and all those things came. You can only reach Ghanaians through community endeavors, maybe mass media, through radio, and maybe through television. That by itself also had its cost element. And so when we had the opportunity of social media coming into the picture, we have begun to use social media effectively in reaching out. And most of our, in fact, whatever we do, once it is recorded and put up in the social media or the new media in general, you get to replay it at your own time. You get to understand what Chraj is doing, and I hope this recording will do that. Those who are not following now can record later, among others. And of course, we now have our corporate affairs team that is also bringing in areas, things like this, Chraj and you and all that, which gives us the opportunity to reach millions of Ghanaians without necessarily spending a peso. And that is the way to go. We should make public education as least expensive as possible, but at the same time, reaching the public. So that is what I'll say for that.
We started our conversation by highlighting some of the achievements of Chraj. We all know that there are some challenges that the Commission faces. And so what obstacles impact the work of the Commission?
Right. But permit me before I answer that question.
Yes, sir.
So also indicate that as part of the modernization process, we have come up with the electronic case management,
yes,
because much of our work is on casework investigation. And so the electronic case management is going to make it easier, not only for receiving complaints, documenting complaints, but for us to all work from the same databases. And so the head office has the databases, and we are rolling out to the regions. So far, we've reached 12 regions, and hopefully this year we would reach the 16th region,
okay,
where we can have all our complaints online, web-based, and any staff, wherever you are, can go into the system and work on your case. It also has a reporting module, which will make it easier for us to select what we want. If I want to know how many women have reported on sexual abuse or harassment, and you can drill it down to the northern region, you can pick that data from the system. And so we are modernizing, we are digitizing as well. And but to now answer the question, our biggest challenge has been something that we have spoken at length with the body that is supposed to resource the commission. It's about finance. If you keep piling mandates upon mandates on the commission, mandates don't work by themselves. They need resources, and that is our problem. 3 mandates, broad mandates, which in other countries would have been 3 different institutions. Now you are adding a 4th institution to us, but you are still giving the amount that you gave to us as if we are one institution. That is at the heart of our challenges. And I'm hoping that there will be a reset in the finances of financing this commission. And I'm hoping that the constitutional review, and we wrote to them, and I understand that they are also looking at that. New ways of financing these independent constitutional bodies so that we don't depend solely on the whims and caprices of the executive. That's how we look at this.
Dr. Whittal, as the institution's leader, we want to know what strategic priorities are you setting for Chraj?
Well, I'm a team player, and so it's not me setting, but it's the commission. My colleagues, the 2 deputy commissioners, and I have met management already. We have discussed the things that we'll be doing in the course of the year. But we also will be involving our regional offices in a yet to be announced retreat, where we would not only need to discuss the way forward, but also particularly with regard to the strategic plan of the commission, which has come to an end in December. And we need to review it in the light of new things that are coming up, so that it can guide the direction of the commission for the next 5 years. And so that is what we are doing.
I'm going to push you a little further. Should Ghanaians expect any digital reforms, any major shifts in how Chraj does its work? And so this is our last question for the interview.
Right. Digital reform, I partly answered that, because the electronic case management is at the heart of our work. Case work, we're dealing with, on the average, the commission receives and disposes of about 13,000 complaints and throughout the country. And if we can get all this within one database, then assessing or picking up, pulling our data at any given time will be easy for all of us. And that is where we are. And I'm saying we are rolling out. We have only 8 regions to add. And then Chraj will be fully digital when it comes to electronic case. Of course, any other reforms that we are doing in the area of social media, among others, are things we should be looking at. Right.
All right. Viewers, this is where we draw the curtains on today's show. This has been the special edition of Chraj and You, featuring the Chraj Commissioner, Dr. Joseph Whittal. I want to say a very big thank you to the Commissioner for honoring our invitation and for the insights that you have shared, specifically in reference to the role and the impact of Chraj. We also want to thank our viewers for sticking and staying and for always making the time to join us. We don't take it for granted. If you're seeing this podcast for the first time, we want to encourage you to connect with the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice on all our social media handles at Chraj Ghana for more updates. You can also visit our website at www.chraj.gov.gh for additional information on our services and on our mandates. I am Rufina Dimbwe Palvi. Do join us next month for another insightful discussion on Chraj and You. I wish you a beautiful Wednesday. Good afternoon.
Information sharing and public engagement. Chraj and You.